Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me a favor, guys, as we bring to you your Thursday evening, the 18th of January, your Tottenham news, views, and clues update. Please hit the like button for me if you enjoy the content. It really helps the channel out. Hit the subscribe button as well if you haven't already. And even if you have, double check you still are. Hashtag YouTube shenanigans. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And guys, I wasn't going to do a video this evening. I was going to leave it alone with just the one this morning. But then a little bit of kind of news has come out percolating about a certain player, a player that I did a video on just yesterday. But I think I've done 3 videos on this player now over the last sort of 3 or 4 months, going all the way back to October the 14th. Anyway, there is an ITK micro industry on Twitter, as you know. And tonight, one of the ITKs, I don't know how, who these people are or how knowledgeable they are, but people that participate in that conversation have promoted this guy from tier 2 to tier 1. And so it got me thinking, why and what else has he been talking about? And I looked into it, and it was only a couple of days ago that he, and I'll show you on the screen right now, that he responded to a link that was first brought out, or that he brought out way back on December the 30th, I think it was. And it is from the Spurs ITK hub that said back in December, on December the 29th, so 2.5 weeks ago, nearly 3 weeks ago, when he was a tier 2, when Spurs Journo, which is Poseidon ITK, was tier 2, that Spurs are interested in Ederson from Atalanta. Now, there's people in the comment section on my video this morning that said, Sean, why haven't you done a video on Ederson? And to be honest, I had been meaning to, but I hadn't got around to doing it. And consequently, I thought, well, now that I've seen this story about Antonio Nusa and, of course, this ITK thing, I might as well kind of converge and bring together a conflated video for you. So he said back 2.5 weeks ago, the Spurs are interested in Ederson. As you may or may not know, Tottenham have been linked. It's getting around in the last 3 or 4 days that Tottenham are, in fact, alongside Newcastle and Manchester United, have been sending scouts over to Atalanta to watch him play. I think Newcastle United saw him play and win 5-0. Atalanta's last game, they won 5-0. I think he even got on the score sheet. We're going to come to Ederson in a moment, but this is what got my interest. So back then, he was considered a tier 2. This morning, or this afternoon rather, he has now, according to the Spurs ITK hub, been promoted to tier 1. Now, I'm not sure what he's done to warrant that promotion, if you like, into the tiers. I think it might be something to do with I think may have been early on the news that Decky was sick for the Manchester United game, and the same with the Maddison was also meant to be back, but also got taken down with illness as well. So maybe it was that information that got him the promotion. But in any event, he's come out this evening saying Spurs exploring a buy and loan back deal for Antonio Nusa in January. If we can't finalize it this window, it would be something we'd revisit in the summer too. So I think I did a video first on Antonio Nusa back on about October the 20th. If you might remember, guys, there was a story that I put out saying that Paratici had gone to, I think it was Olmo Airport maybe, and he had gone to meet the representatives and the agents of certain players from Club Bruges, and namely Antonio Nusa and the guy that I'd love to see in a Tottenham shirt as well as Antonio Nusa, Andreas Skov Olsen, who they were playing against a team in Norway at the time. And so the rules or the rumors were that Paratici had gone there. And we did a video, or maybe there's a chance that we're going to sign one or both of those players. Then more links were formed on sort of middle of November. I think there was another video that I brought out, but certainly there was a lot of news back in the middle of November about Antonio Nusa to Tottenham. And of course, it's come out again this week. Now, I did a video on him yesterday, so I don't want to go too much through it. But in that video, I promised I'd get up the stats for Antonio Nusa, and I didn't. I forgot to do it on the video. So I thought I would sort of show you now why it is that everybody is so excited about Antonio Nusa. Before we get into that, you need to remember when it comes to FB refs, guys, that depending on the level or the competition the player is playing in, it changes the comparables. So Antonio Nusa is playing for Club Bruges, which isn't a team that's in a league in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And so rather than being compared to the top 5 leagues, I actually compare them now for those sorts of situations to the next 14 competitions over the last 365 days. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt that he's being compared to not just the top 5 strongest leagues, but the sort of 15 or 14 strongest leagues in Europe. And so some of these numbers will be a little bit squiffed, but it doesn't matter. For an 18-year-old, Antonio Nusa is unbelievable in the things that Tottenham are looking for in a wide man. For example, he is in the top 1%. There is no one better or very few people that do more in terms of progressive carries or successful take-ons or touches in the penalty area, progressive passes received, an unbelievable amount of work with the ball at his feet in the wide areas. But he's not just someone that hangs around at the top end of the pitch and doesn't get back and doesn't do his job. He still gets stuck in compared to other attacking wingers, by the way, he gets stuck in and is in the top 20 percentile, give or take it for the for tackles in every 90-minute period. And he also gets in and gets stuck in with blocks as well. As you scroll down here, you can see that he's not shy of trying to get onto the score sheet where possible. He has, several shots on goal every single 90 minutes. He gets a couple of them on target. But his passing in terms of stats for an 18-year-old against everybody else doesn't look great, but that's because of the way that he plays for Bruges and what's required of him. He's the kind of person that gets onto the ball at the last sort of stage of the phase rather than the build-up. And it is what it is, right? He is someone that likes to drive at players rather than sort of being that connectivity at the moment. But where it really matters is in the shot creating actions. What is he doing? If he's not running at people and not passing the ball, what is he doing? How much involvement, how much influence does he have in Club Bruges' ability to create opportunities? Well, a lot. In terms of shot creating actions, he creates over 5 shot creating actions for either himself or for his team during the game on a 90-minute basis. He's in this top 7 percentile for goal creating actions. He's doing something that is that at least or nearly 7 times in every 10 games, something he is doing leads to a goal. Absolutely sensational. And as I say, don't neglect this. This stuff is meaningful. He is not someone that is just going to hang around at the top end of the pitch and wait for the ball to come back. He gets back, kind of like what Brian Hill does. Brian Hill doesn't just sit on the left-hand side. Maybe a little bit different to Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson doesn't want to get back and do that kind of defensive work and try and win the ball back and support the players behind him. People like Brian Hill have always wanted to do that. They get back and get stuck in. And this guy, Antonio Nusa, does that as well. In terms of possession, guys, like I say, for an 18-year-old, there's very, very few that even come close to what he does on the ball in terms of driving at players, creating fear. If you're looking for someone who is affordable now, who will be there for the next year and for the next 5 or 6 years, but that has that fear factor, or that could potentially become a player that terrorizes defenses, sort of like what Mo Salah does now, and what Arsenal fans would hope that Saka can become. In Antonio Nusa, I think you might just have it. And if the noise is true, the news is true that Tottenham are looking to buy him, and it would make the deal easier if we were to loan him back to continue his development and then take him for next year, then I would be all about that. You know what? I would even be okay with doing the deal in the summer if need be, and then doing what we did with Destiny Udogie and Pape Sarr and loaning him back to Bruges for the entirety of next year, if that's deemed the required card to play here, then so be it. The guy, for me, look, he's one for the present potentially, but he's certainly one for the future. He's got so much time on his side, and if it's a necessary part of the negotiation, I'm fine with it. Even if it's not necessary, but it's deemed that that's in the best interest of the player, I'm also absolutely fine with it. So the fact that this Poseidon ITK has got his promotion to tier 1, whatever that means, then I thought I would kind of bring this out and sort of reaffirm the promise I made to you in yesterday's video to get through the stats. The stats look absolutely insane for this kid, and they get better and better. They weren't this great in the video I did back in October, so he's kicking on again. Just to kind of look at his overall performance record, guys, in the last this season at least. 26 games in all competitions: the Croaky Cup, the Jupiler Pro League, the Conference League, and the qualifiers. He has played 26 times for Bruges, scored 3 goals and got 3 assists. And as you can see, he's scoring in the Conference League and got an assist in the qualifiers for the Conference League. So we haven't got to necessarily worry about the fact that he's only done it in the Belgium League. Like I say, this guy's 18 years old. There's more than enough time. And I think there's more than enough evidence that this guy is one of those players that you take a risk on, take a punt on, and do what you have to do to have him in your squad for the future. Love it if we could get this guy. And like I say, it's always exciting when you get linked to a player like this. 18 years old. I even think I'm not sure how it would work in the case of where you buy him, put him into the under 21s, and then loan him back out again. I'm not sure if that would continue to work as being considered an academy player that could then transition to homegrown. I'm guessing it would, because Pape Sarr will be considered a homegrown player next year, and he hasn't spent 3 years in Tottenham's academy, despite being technically a Tottenham player for 3 years by the time he turns 21. So maybe Nusa would still count as a homegrown player, even if we were to buy him now, loan him out for however long, and then bring him back when he's, say, 20 years old. We could then keep him in the youth team and then progress him into the full squad at 21 as a homegrown player. So a lot of value. I'm sure he won't be short of suitors, but something to consider. Listen, that's Poseidon ITK. He's also talked about Ederson. He spoke about it a while back. And like I say, this player has been linked with Tottenham quite a lot over the last few days from a variety of sources. So guys, right now we're going to take a twist and turn and go into Ederson. As I said, about time that I got round to evaluating this player. I'll start by saying 100% honesty, as I always say when it comes to players from the Serie A. I don't watch Serie A football as closely as I watch other European leagues, and certainly obviously nowhere near as close as I watch the Premier League. So you can take my assertions here with a pinch of salt. I'm going to look through his stats. I have gone through the Y Scout tool and looked into his game, and I've got some kind of some impressions of him as a player when I watch him visually. And to be entirely honest, it doesn't really necessarily stack up with what I see on the stats. Some of the things I see on the stats do link up with what I see visually, but in terms of like being impressed, the stats are very impressive for what we want from a 6/8. Visually, I find him a little bit cumbersome. I'll be entirely honest. Like, I feel like, and I could be completely wrong here, so if anyone does know this player far better than I do, then tell me. I'm happy to be educated as much as I try to bring to you my own opinions on this. Love to hear your own. But yeah, there's a little bit of a slight difference between what I see and what on the stats and what I see having watched the player in the various compartments using the Y Scout regression tool. So just to sort of give you a little bit of a background on the player, he moved across from Brazil to Salernitana in 2019 for about, where is it? 6.5 million euros. And then from there, he moved for 21 million euros in 2022 to Atalanta. Now, he plays primarily either in the 6 or in the 8, has also played in the 10. And if we look at his key performance data that is detailed, am I sharing this on the screen? I am. That's good. Then you will see that over the last sort of over this year, at least, he's only played in central midfield and defensive midfield. 17 times played in the 8, only 3 times played in the 6. He has scored 5 goals, 4 in central midfield, 1 from defensive midfielder, and got an assist. So a really healthy return for someone that comes across to me more as that kind of that tough tackling midfielder, although does have a wide range of passing. What I've seen of him, he likes to spread the play from left to right. I've seen quite a few times in those short kind of chronological plays of him looping the ball up and smashing it, over to the other side of the pitch. If he picks the ball up on the left, he hits it to the right, and the right to the left, and so forth. I would say that his short passing doesn't look particularly great, but he's better at kind of more direct stuff into the medium length and the longer balls forward as well. Doesn't mind progressing the ball forward. Probably a little bit like Pierre Mohoybier, something that you don't really realize that he does as often as he does until you look at the stats. But in terms of progressive passes, he certainly does it. He's what I'd say from the visual stuff, right? He seems to win the ball back. He's very, very good at tackling, at defensive work, getting the ball back, sitting in that 6, being that kind of enforcer, that protector of the ball, gets the ball back, and does try to sort of take players on. but doesn't really do it with that consummate ease that Brazilian technique usually demonstrates. From what I've seen, could be wrong, but it looks more clumsy. Like he manages to kind of bundle his way through and still come out the other side with the ball. And like by hook or by crook, right? If you get the ball out and you do what you need to do with it, then it is what it is. For me, let's have a quick look at his stats. And you'll see in this situation, we're back to, unlike with Antonio Nusa, you can see that we are looking at the men's Big Five league. So he's being compared to all midfielders, 6s and 8s and 10s. If you consider a 10, I guess you would, as part of the midfield situation. But he's not an attacking midfielder. He's definitely just a box-to-box or a 6. And look, lots of green bars here. The obvious standouts here is that successful take-ons. He's in the top 15 percentile. Are you seeing this for sure? Let me just double check. Yes, you are. 15 percentile. Again, for me, looks like when he does it, it doesn't look like it's natural and clever and tricky and finessed. It looks a little bit kind of clumsy, but like I say, he gets through. In terms of the defensive work is really where you're going to see as we go down more and more stability and confidence and reassurance that when you've got him sat in front of the 4 in front, when he's sat in front of the 4 behind him, he's going to sort of tidy that ball up, recycle it, and hopefully then give it to people who are, who can progress it and who can kind of create more havoc in the front end. But look, he certainly chips in, a goal every sort of 7 games, 8 games in Serie A, and that for against all other midfielders is in the top 20th percentile. Progressive passes, 6 times, nearly 6 times every 90 minutes in the top 30%, give or take. Progressive carries, 1.5 times, so about the 60th percentile. He's not afraid to take the ball if necessary, but he's more likely to sort of move the ball up the field and give it to someone, or try to give it to someone who is more comfortable with the ball at his feet. Let me look at the passing stats again. I think this one sort of does. It does. There you go. It does line up with what I saw. But short passes isn't really necessarily what he's looking to do in terms of the pass completion. 86 percentile. 86%. Whilst that looks like it's a terribly low percentage compared to other people, 86, 89, 80, 88%. I'm sure that if you were 87%, you'd shift right up that bar. It's not that different. There's not that much of a difference between 86% and 88, 89%. But he just doesn't do very many short passes during the game. That's really not what he's there for. But when it comes to medium and long passes, as you can see, he's far more comfortable sort of spraying the ball. And again, I don't know whether that's part of Atalanta's system, that they have a certain way with certain players in certain positions where his job is to kind of take on a little bit more risk and ping it forward. But certainly that is what the stats suggest. Passes into the final third. He's in the top 25 percentile, the top quarter, which is pretty impressive at 5.43 passes per game. I did mention he likes to switch the ball. He likes to hit the ball from left to right, from right to left, sort of what I do on FIFA. If Henry's watching, he'll know what I do. Do that stuff all the time. And he's up there in the top 15th percentile. Everything else is kind of a little bit, irrelevant. But look, what he does do, he's in the top 5 percentile for someone in his position that takes on a player, and then in so doing, that then leads to a shot creating action from someone else on his team. He's in the top 5 or 6 percentile in the top 5 leagues for doing that. So when he takes players on, if he's successful, then generally that move has broken through a line. And that's obviously very helpful, right? Something that Tottenham like to have in a midfielder is people that can, especially in that 6, if you can break the line, break the press, then obviously the game opens up. And when he does it for his particular team, he's in the top 95 to 94 percentile for that situation, then translating into a shot for someone on his team, which is pretty impressive. And the same goes for goal creating actions, right? Similar sort of thing here, even though it happens very rarely. You can see by the actual numbers, very, very rare. Ultimately, that his ability and his lack of fear in taking players on with the ball, if he's successful with it, it generates good outcomes. But this is where we're kind of really going to focus here. As a number 6, you're comparing yourself, or a number 8 most of the time, you're comparing yourself to other people in the midfield basket, generally speaking. And this is where he earns his crust. Getting the ball back. If dribblers are running at him, he tackles them, and he's in the top 10 percentile of midfielders across the top 5 leagues at doing it. Dribblers challenged, he's in the top 25 percentile. He gets them more than half of the time as well. He's always getting his body in the way. He's a brave Brazilian player. He likes to put his face or his body on the line and gets the blocks and the block shots, the shots blocked and the passes blocked. Interceptions, top 15 percentile. Tackles and interceptions, top 15 percentile. He's very, very good at getting the ball back and stopping and slowing down other teams' work in terms of tackles in all 3/3 of the pitch, primarily in the midfield third, obviously. But this is something that we might be looking for, something that maybe Tottenham are interested in. As I say, though, guys, look, the stats look good if you're interested in that sort of thing. Last thing I'd point out there, he's very, very strong in the air. And that is something that Tottenham, I think are improving on. Last season, the season before, I think one of the major weaknesses in Tottenham's game was our aerial vulnerabilities from set pieces, from throw-ins, from corner kicks, and just generally crosses into the box. Over the last 12 months, we've started to make moves in that. You might have heard me on my channel talking about the worries about having and signing too many smaller or shorter players, and that it's going to obviously offer opportunities for taller opposition. But I think Tottenham now have a team that's one of the tallest in the league, and we're getting better and better at fixing that aerial sort of threat issue. And this guy, if he was to come in, is another sort of piece to that puzzle. And you get more and more confident that I think we're the only team in the Premier League that hasn't conceded a goal from a corner this season. I could be wrong saying that, but I think that's a stat that someone said to me recently. And I kind of wasn't surprised given how we've been making inroads into that issue. As I say, this guy winning 60% of his aerial challenges that he's had to get involved in the midfield is a nice little added bonus. As I say, though, guys, if I'm entirely honest, the stats tell one story. And what I saw from him when I went through the Y-Scout tool, I don't know enough about him to really kind of to say this with any level of confidence, but there's something about his style that I wasn't particularly impressed with. I wasn't particularly enamored with, if that's the right phrase. Again, one of these things that I feel like I'd need to go and do a lot more work, a lot more research to feel like I really understand it. But my first impression of him looking through the Y-Scout at various departments of his game, I felt like the whole thing kind of feels like a little bit awkward, not the way you would naturally think or feel about a Brazilian footballer. Might be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I am. Guys, look, that's the two news stories. Poseidon ITK, first of all, whoever you are, congratulations for your promotion to Tier 1. And there is news out tonight that is resembling and backing up what you're saying. For what it's worth, I know we've moved on from Antonio Nusa, but literally as I've been talking, I've just seen a story that it's Johan Langer that has also identified Antonio Nusa and has recommended him to Tottenham. So he's been looking at the data like we have on this video. I'm sure he goes into a lot more detail than what I would ever be able to do. But ultimately, he's a big fan of Antonio Nusa. And this guy, Poseidon ITK, if he's got a promotion, I thought, why not? Let's lean into his information and bring to you a second video. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Ederson and Antonio Nusa, would you be happy if we could get them done? Would you be happy if you could get them done for the summer? Do you still want us to do business in this particular window? I'm very, very happy if Tottenham were to strike, as I said already, some sort of relationship with Club Brugge where you could buy the player and loan him back for as long as necessary to give him the valuable minutes and let him continue his growth. I'm happy for him to come in now, but maybe the club are thinking that the step up is quite big and let's just let him continue to kind of to grow in the pond that he's in at the moment, and then we'll bring him over when ready. And in terms of Ederson, I'm happy to be convinced, but from what I've seen, the stats look good. The visual stuff, don't know, not that fascinated by it. And I think there's probably better value out there. As I said, I think I might have mentioned it. If I haven't already, then his valuation, according to the reports I've seen, when Newcastle United went over to scout this guy for the 5-0 game that he just played in, apparently the noise that came back was that if you want him, he's not going for less than 40 million euros. And for me, 33, 32 million pound, whatever that is, I think there's better. And I still want Tottenham to keep one eye on the prize, which is potential bargains that are coming this summer. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if we were to go for loan options for January, if we needed to get things done to carry us through until the end of the year, because I think that in the summer there's going to be a lot of clubs with a lot of issues, shall we say, that need to be resolved, and Tottenham might be able to benefit. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.